Hello, everyone. Welcome today to today's webinar titled Remodel Your Marketing Strategy, the 2 things every realtor must do to engage their tribe. I'm so grateful that you are with us today. We know time is your most valuable and precious asset. So we've got the next 40 minutes or so jam-packed with a lot of value and learnings from our experts. Before we begin today, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items to make sure that our webinar runs smoothly. Please make sure that if you have questions, we're going to take all of the questions at the end. And if you have a question, you can type the question into your question box. So we'll be queuing those up. Even if you think of a question, you can go ahead and type it in. We'll save it, and then we'll read all the questions out loud at the end. This isn't your typical webinar, meaning this is a webinar where right out of the gate, we're going to be sharing a lot of our learnings and best practices and really providing value on each slide. Don't feel like you have to take a lot of notes. We're going to be sending you an email with the presentation and a lot of goodies at the end. So you can just sit and relax and be in the present moment. This is also not the typical webinar where we've got some experts on and we're going to sell you something at the end. Everything that we give is going to be free today. So don't feel like this is, again, a sales pitch for anything. We just, on behalf of the Kentucky Realtors Association, want to provide value and have a lot of really good learnings that we want to share today. And of course, please keep the conversation going with us. You can see our Twitter handles there. We love to talk to you on social and stay connected with you in that way. So this is me. My name is Sarah Jackson. I am the co-founder of Cerkl, but I also have background in all things engagement. Any job that I've ever had, whether it be with the NFL or a local sewer district or a school district or my favorite, the chamber, I've always had the role of how do you keep an audience engaged and how do you market to them in a way that provides value. So I have a huge passion and engagement and love helping others engage their audience and really get their voice and find their voice out there. But we're here today. I'll be facilitating and moderating this today. I want to get right to our experts and our partners who are sharing all the ways to remodel your marketing strategies, specifically for realtors. And again, a little personal thing about me, I've got 2 little girls and part of our team members at Cerkl. So again, just very excited to be with you today. But I want to toss it to Steve Stevens. Steve is the president of the Kentucky Realtors Association. And Steve and I go way back, almost 20 years ago now, Steve. But if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about all the different roles you've played. You've always been an innovator. You've always pushed any association or group that you've been with kind of to the next level. Can you kind of talk about your background and your preferred vision and passion for the association that you're now with?
Well, thanks, Sarah. And yes, we do go back a long way. Sarah was a former employee of mine very soon after she graduated from college, which doesn't seem like that long ago. But yeah, did a great job for us in some work that we did in government affairs, and that's something big that we do here with Kentucky Realtors. I've been associated with member types of organizations for 26 years now, and the one thing I do know is that members always are seeking more value from an organization, and you're trying to come up with ways that they feel like they're getting that. And as we talk today about marketing, communication, the things that we are trying to do here, one of the things that they need are tools to help them be more effective. I don't care whether you're just a generic small business of any other type beyond realtors. You're looking for new ways to make your work more efficient, cost savings, ways to gain more business. So we're looking for ways to do that all the time here at the Kentucky Realtors. The way that we are providing information through this type of communication through Cerkl actually helps us do that. And we might get into that in more detail later on, but pleased to be here, share whatever I can with this group. Yeah, this is my family. I have two sons. One is engaged to be married, out of school now, and working in downtown Cincinnati, and my other son is in his last year of graduate school at Virginia Tech, former Division I athlete, diver, and now assistant coach while he's finishing up his graduate school, Virginia Tech. And yeah, I like to do all things outdoors, so I enjoy anything outside, so I'm a fitness crazy person too.
And Steve, you're live from Lexington, Kentucky. That's where the association headquarters is located, right?
That's correct.
We are live from the our headquarters at the Center for Innovation at Xavier University in Cincinnati. And I want to toss to Kris Owens. Kris is one of the top performing realtors for the RE/MAX Preferred Group. Kris, where are you located?
Yeah, so I'm headquartered here in my home. That's where I do all my work. I mean, personally, I know everyone, all the realtors kind of have their different styles. I've worked out of my own home for 20 years in entrepreneurial various roles. And so for me, I'm very comfortable and motivated with still being in my home. So here I am. Yep, these are my two kids. I've been married for 22 years. Just hit our 22nd year a couple weeks ago. And we have two kids. My daughter is a sophomore at Western Kentucky, down in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and my son is a sophomore in high school. And you know, coincidentally, like Steve, I'm all about the outdoors. I've gotten into triathlons and love biking, so anything outdoors, I'm all about it as well. So yeah, thanks.
All right, well, we've got a kind of a like attracts like here moment. I'm grateful to kind of come full circle with both of you and to get to do this today for, you know, all the people that are watching. So thank you for being here.
Welcome.
All right, well, we're going to dive in, and when everyone registered for the webinar, if you recall, we had asked a few questions just to kind of get the sense of our audience today. So these are the results from everyone that took that survey of how would you describe your current marketing skills, and they sort of run the gamut. You can see the largest group says, I tried different things, but I'm not sure what works. The second group that was the largest is, I have great ideas, but I just cannot find the time. The third largest, it's so difficult, I have no idea what I'm doing. And the last group, which was our smallest group, was, I'm an expert, it's easy, and I love it. So we've got, again, by far the biggest group that says, I am trying, but there's this sort of guessing, and I'm not sure what works. The other thing we asked is, how difficult in today's day and age has it been to attract and retain your clients? And again, you can see that most people were kind of middle of the pack, but saying, hey, there is a level of difficulty now in the kind of the world we live in to be able to do this. So you can see the rating and the scale there. Excuse me. And then how many hours? We wanted to kind of get a sense of time of how many hours are people spending on marketing a month. Lots of time. Anywhere from 1 to 5 hours, which was the majority of people, to, again, some more on the 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16-hour side. So, and then there are some of you that said, I spend less than 1 hour. So again, we've kind of got a range of people today. The goal of today is really to share a lot of what we've heard work with other realtors, and to give you some ideas of kind of how to, maybe some things you haven't thought about before, to really rebuild kind of the marketing strategy for the time of period that we're in. And then I'm going to run through some of these. Again, Kris, Steve, I'm going to toss to you after we talk about kind of the problem that we're addressing today, and I want to hear from not only Kris directly from you, but also Steve, what you're hearing on the street in terms of kind of what people are struggling with. So these are things that we've heard of different realtors we've come across with, of how do you cut through this social media? It kind of feels like voodoo, that there's limited time and money to do these types of things. I mean, realtors are entrepreneurs. They're building their business. What do I say and when, and kind of also where has been something that's come up. How do you scale kind of this stewardship of all of my clients and really stay top of mind? So, Kris, can you talk a little bit about what you're feeling in terms of marketing?
Yeah, I think completely with the whole social media, there's so many different angles, I think, nowadays that we can market ourselves. And of course, everybody's on the social media, immediate gratification, you know, so forth. But I do think that there's still value. I think as realtors, we need to be pretty well-rounded in our marketing. We need to have various ways to be able to stay top of mind with our clients. And there's so many different ways to do that. And I think not only through social media, but I think in that immediate gratification, but I also think that there's still that value in just the old snail mail, handwritten notes. You know, it's kind of like we forget that. And when we do receive something of a handwritten note, it's, you know, people are, it's kind of like, oh, it's that old mentality of, oh my gosh, they care, right? When it's handwritten, it's just not mass production. So I think there's just so many different ways to stay top of mind with our clients that we've got so many tools as well to be able to do that. It's mind-boggling, and I think that's where most of us, like you said, the survey results was, you know, we're willing to try different things, and half of us will spend some of our time doing that. It's almost like a crapshoot, but I think kind of round out your marketing strategies and just stick with them, then I think they will pay dividends as far as what we're looking for as realtors. We just need to kind of create that stick to it marketing strategy plan every year with the tools that we're given.
Mm-hmm. Steve, what are you hearing out there with your members in terms of this?
You know, as I've become, you know, I've been a year and a half now in this organization, so I'm still gaining a lot of information and knowledge about this industry, but what I'm amazed at is the amount of hours that realtors have to put into their businesses, and they're covering just so much waterfront, you know, trying to balance all that they are doing, you know, with regard to the deals they're actually doing and the actual development of new customers and all that. So, you know, when I think about the three most important things to them, and that really is probably for all businesses, is, you know, how can you save time, how can you save money in the things that you're doing, and then how can you generate more business? Those three things are most important, I think, to most of the realtors that I talk to. And, you know, we talk about that in here sometimes about when we're evaluating a product or service for them, you know, will it do one of those three things or multiples of those things, you know? And so when you're looking at all the social media, you know, you have to determine, you know, where's the market that you're looking for, and, you know, what is easy for me to look at quickly, identify where customers might be located, utilize this in the best way I can. And I'd like to talk a little more later about this in terms of, you know, what I think we want to do is often share good information. We want to be helpful. Realtors by nature are helpful sorts of people. I don't know why, but they just tend to want to be helpful. So when we get our hands on information that might help them in their business, or if they get something in their hands that might be helpful to a future homeowner, somebody they're selling to or has just recently bought a home from them, they want to share that stuff, you know. And I think as they do, they grab a connection. They bring somebody closer to them. They build goodwill towards people because those folks, you know, start to look at them as a source of good information that's going to help them in whatever they're doing, whether they're remodeling, they're, you know, decorating, they're trying to, you know, fix a problem. I don't know what it is, but there are many things. But I think that's what will connect people to you, is when you've got sort of this thought of helpfulness. But going back to the question, the problem, get through the noise. What's going to lead me to customers? I've got a zillion different social media channels I can go to, and lots of people try to monitor and be involved in many of them. But you know, as I'm trying to understand it, and Kris probably can give some more perspective on it. You know, how do you narrow down that plethora of social media channels that are out there that you say, you know, I wonder if I ought to be sending things through that channel as opposed to this one, or adding to the various channels that I'm already sending my information through, so I can be most effective, because I only got so much time and I can't do 20 of them, but I can maybe do 5 or 6.
Yes, and to speak to that, while you were talking, Steve, on our slide, all those social media channels, for those of you who, you know, are a little bit removed from this, this is now all the information that goes out every minute. So this is, I always like this slide. It's kind of a cold glass of water to the face slide, I call it. I know when I saw it, I thought, is that right? 3.3 million Facebook posts a minute. So it's becoming more and more difficult, like you had mentioned, Steve, which one do I use and how do I cut through it? So I think that's where we'll jump into kind of what are the building blocks, and to really break it down, and how both of you, you know, have done that, and maybe kind of take out the overwhelm that one might feel, and to really encourage everyone listening today that, hey, you can do this, and we're going to break it down kind of step by step for you. So it's not your fault kind of thing. I always like to also, you know, people look at this and are like, oh, this is why it's so hard. I don't feel so bad now. So this is one thing, again, I can't wait to talk to both of you about, Kris and Steve, because I think it's a step that we, not only, you know, if you are a realtor, but just as an entrepreneur, which I know I am, we forget. So we want to jump into the marketing strategy really quickly, and we sort of forget kind of the bigger things about, you know, PQ, EQ, SQ, and IQ, and I want to talk about what those are. There was a book by Stephen Covey called The 8th Habit. If you read Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, well, he wrote an 8th habit about finding your voice. And he was talking about, there's kind of 4 sections in doing that: the body, mind, heart, and spirit. So this, and you can check out that book later, but really taking a step back before you even go down the road of marketing. I know, Steve, you've done this with, as I perceive in your own life, and Kris, with you, when you said, I'm a triathlon runner, like how you defined yourself, to really look at your life holistically and look at that physical health, your relationships, your emotional health, your passion, and then, you know, your mental health. Can you talk a little bit about taking a step back before we dive into marketing and considering kind of all these aspects of your life as you go down the road to kind of build your real estate business? Can you kind of speak to this holistic view and how it's helped you, Kris?
Wow, that's kind of a big question there, but I do. I think that's a good question, though, because I think we all have different, you know, styles and personalities first and foremost, and who I am naturally is not, you know, is not going to be the exact same for the realtor sitting next to me, so to speak, right? So I think first and foremost, that is a good question to kind of come to understand, is how do I naturally just want to function, and where is my passion, and where do I get excited? And that is a self-reflective question, right? So I do have to know that about me. And then what I also love, as far as the energy that I can bring into my personal brand, right, is going to be based on who am I? Who am I in the community? Who am I as an individual? And how do I really, what are my strong suits of how I really do touch each and every client? And again, I think that's different for everybody in terms of your personality and your natural who you are. So, but what I find is, to make it kind of easier and kind of sift through all of this noise, if you will, is knowing that now I can get excited, right, about engaging into the community and getting to know and making it more personal, right, with the client interaction. I think that's the most important thing. Is that, you know, as realtors, yes, we want to grow. We want to grow in volume, but we don't want to lose the quality of what we do with each interaction. I don't ever want my clients to ever feel like they're just a number, right, in terms of my annual volume growth, if you will. So just like every transaction that we do, it's an individual story, right? We hear that all the time, is that, you know, there's no transaction that completely be the exact same as the one before, because we're talking about people's lives and their stories. So with that said, I want my clients to feel that individual care and concern that I'll bring to the table for them. But to answer that question, Sarah, I think it just kind of brings back, you know, knowing, first of all, knowing what are my passions, what do I get excited about, and then how can I brand myself accordingly. Does that kind of answer that?
Right. Steve, you have anything to add here on this self-awareness piece?
No, you know, I think we just have done some work here internally with Myers-Briggs. A lot of folks are familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality type indicator, and what we've determined is, you know, we have a lot of extroverts in our group. We have a couple of introverts, but what's important to know is where do they get their energy, you know, and, you know, you draw your energy, if you're an E, from others. Basically, I want to be around others. When I'm around others, I'm energized, and I like to, you know, I like to engage. And so, you know, going to my personal life, active like Kris. I'm a triathlete, I'm a marathoner, I do all these kinds of things. But guess what? I'd rather be in a group fitness class than an individual workout myself, you know, because I love to be with that group of people, because that's where I get my energy. So you kind of learn that kind of thing about yourself, and I think that helps focus you on activities that are going to help you in your business as well as your personal life.
Okay.
If I can
well, and I'm going to kind of go ahead. Yeah, Kris.
No, if I can just throw that one thing in there, I think it just, the more that we know ourselves through whatever personality test, I mean, I'm a high D, high I, according to the DISC program, right? I think it just makes it easier to sift through the noise as to what we're talking about, because it becomes your own. Like, I don't have to look at what my partners are doing or other people in the office are doing, because what works for them is going to what works for them. But I need to make sure that it's working for me. And that is all going to be developed from who am I, you know, and where do I get my energy, so to speak, right? So I just think it makes it a little bit easier on the marketing strategy.
Well, and the title, you know, of today's slide was, what are those two things, right, to engage my tribe? And if you notice, we use the word tribe because, Kris, with your tribe, you do want to attract people who really get jazzed about community engagement and fitness and health. That's what is attracting. What you're putting out is what you're attracting. So I think, as you know, if you look at the woman in the slide, like, that's me. I have 2 little girls. I don't have time, but what cuts through the noise and resonates is that type of thing, right? When you are so authentic about your marketing, almost as if you're a lifestyle brand. Because the two things that brands that are winning, and Steve, with your association, is to add value and save time. So we can't just talk, right, on social media. The brands that are winning, if you look at these screens, and people sitting in the audience are like, oh, I know Netflix, I know the Skim or Amazon. They're winning because, and again, Steve, you hit the nail on the head, you know, with talking about realtors being natural connectors. If that can be my person to save me time and provide me value, those are the two things that win and that we want to focus today. And rooted in that is this remodeling of, you know, the marketing strategy. And rooted in that on the background is, how do you keep that personal connection and stay top of mind? So we're going to break that down and go through each one of these. Again, you'll get a sheet via email, but we're going to go through kind of, hey, this is what we're going to go over. This is kind of the steps to build the strategy, and then talk about each one of these, not only with Kris, but also, Steve, what you've done with the association. were planning kind of the conference that you recently just had, you were so passionate about, I really want to innovate this and provide value to our members. And we'd even debated on when to do the webinar and decided let's follow up, and anybody that might have missed that, let's make sure that we learn from what we taught and reapply that here. Again, always thinking about the value side of the members. So high level, I'll go over this and then we'll jump back into each one of these. So your brand is your why. Why am I doing this? Who am I? It's kind of rooted in that self-awareness piece. And then we'll talk about the what. So once you kind of have your why, what is that message map, and how do you make sure that you stay true to what you're messaging and what you're about through that? And then the how, right? What is the content? What do we mean when we say content? And the when and the timing, and where do I put all this stuff? So those are sort of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you tools to really, again, break it down and rebuild that back up and really have it rooted in self-awareness, because then it's authentic and it really rings true to the people that you're trying to attract anyway. So here we go. The why. So Kris, let's talk about your brand. And sometimes when people think about branding, they make it kind of harder than it is. But in our experience, if people can pick kind of 3 words that best describe you and then ask a partner, do I sound like this? So Kris, what would be kind of 3 words that would best describe you that you've kind of done in your marketing when you've thought about your marketing and branding?
Yeah, it's funny that you said when you ask a partner, because I'm sitting here thinking, Sarah, you know me. What's your impression, right, of my brand? So, I mean, could I just throw that back on you? I mean,
yeah. So I think I would say that you are fitness person. You love health and fitness. I would associate that with you. Passionate about community engagement, and that you're very authentic and sincere and really wanting to provide that value to your peers. And I would also call you, have a leadership role, particularly in that female space, with us wanting to break boards and go watch, the movie Wonder Woman and getting a bunch of, women together. I'm drawn to you because of your passion for female leadership too. So those would be the things that how I would describe you and what I think that your marketing now reflects. So, Steve, what about the association? Oh, Kris, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something else before we toss to Steve?
No, I mean, thank you for that, because I think that just affirms back to me, right, what I hope to bring to the community and to my clients is exactly that. I just want to be an authentic encourager, facilitate a bridging transaction for the clients, right, from one home to the next. And I always say it is there is no part of what I do that's about me, but I do want to be able to build that trust authentically with the people in my community to say, she's kind of the real deal, so to speak, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I am for the client. So,
yeah.
So thank you for that. Yeah.
I would say on our behalf, strength first comes to mind. Having a membership that's almost 11,000 strong, even though as realtor organizations go, we're relatively medium size, when you look at other states. But the fact is, you harness that group of people to really put their voices together, and you have a strong message to convey to those you're trying to influence. And in our case, we're trying to protect the industry. We're trying to make the world better for realtors, in Kentucky, so that they can succeed in business. So strength is a big part of that. I also see us as just highly ethical, and they put great stock in the fact that we subscribe to a strict code of ethics here, and we hold each other accountable to that. And so that is sort of a tattoo almost, on everyone in this organization, and we have to maintain that here, and sometimes police it. So I think that's very strong. The other thing I would have to say is a very caring organization. You look across all of the local associations, and we try to do this as well on the state level. Everyone is in a give back mode, in their communities somehow, some way. They incorporate it into their strategic plans. They say, we are going to, provide the community, some kind of service that will, in fact, promote the realtor brand, but that's not why they do it exclusively. It's because it's kind of part of them to do that and to give back. And so, it's how we work with consumers. It's how we connect with consumers, because we are first and foremost about this industry and about realtors, but we're also out there to do some consumer protection through the way we work and the way we kind of police ourselves. And we want to make sure that those who are going to carry that realtor brand are all adhering to that ethical standard. So anyway, those are the things that come to mind for me.
Yeah. Well, and I would say also, when I think of your association, I think of you as their, an advocate for them, especially when I get your legislative updates, and you've always been this way with any organization, Steve, I think you've worked with, but really, I would say innovation is in there, really trying to push the bar on how do we evolve and continue to, again, provide that value in an ever-changing world. So, but kudos to both of you for digging deep and really thinking about this. I think this is a step people miss, but I think it's one that is on that foundation of the house. So let's go to the what. So these are things, again, that both of you, again, have talked about, things that get you jazzed, right? What subject matter do you want to talk about? And what would be kind of the things on the hill that you would go and fight for? So the next step is to kind of identify those. And so, Kris, what kind of topics, if you just reiterate those for the audience, that you like to talk about with, your tribe?
Yeah, I mean, just personal development is big. I just always, want to be better today than I was yesterday, so to speak, right? So that, and, socializing with friends is good. Volunteer, what can we do for the community is always a big conversation. Traveling, I just, all those things are pretty there.
Steve, categories and topics that sort of the association falls under, these would be kind of those value pieces. You want to toss out a few that your organization offers as well?
Talk about, is obviously, what changes are on the horizon. This industry is very changing. I mean, things are constantly coming into the environment, and I mean the business environment, the business climate here, that change everything. It change the game. Whether you're talking about, all these platforms that are out there, like Zillow and all of these kinds of things that are going through big changes, and that sometimes look as threats to realtors and the local associations and things like that. So we're really looking at change all the time, and there's a lot of sources of information that come into us that we like to try to funnel back out that can help our members stay on top of this industry. And that's a hard thing to do, because the pace of change is very rapid. You hear that phrase a lot out in the world and in business and everything, but I truly think this industry by itself is in one of the most rapid changing environments that there is of all, because technology plays such a big part now in doing real estate. Probably used to not be. And I hear folks that have been around a long time that used to talk about MLS books and this paper world we lived in and all these things that happened, and now all that stuff's gone by the wayside and technology has kicked in, and we have to stay up on it. So back to Kris's point too, personal development, training, and being involved in learning all the time. You have to do that in the industry, or you won't stay ahead of it, and you won't succeed, or your competition will pass you by quickly, because they may be paying attention and getting that education and training, and you're not, and they're going to go right past you. So focusing in on, how is this world changing for me in my business, in my industry, and what do I need to go out and find as far as education and training to get me up to speed, keep me ahead of that.
Right. All right. So again, just to reiterate, you've got your why and kind of the language of how you're going to talk about these topics. And if you can kind of pick three things, with Kris, I know you've picked kind of fitness that you talk about, and you post pictures about yourself on social media about the training, but yet there's leadership things that you're talking about. Sometimes you share recipes. So, but it all fits within your brand and the things that you love, which again, why that kind of cuts through and hits your audience. One thing that I will share, that when you are thinking about writing kind of a key messages, and again, we'll share this message map with you, some helpful things is really, who are you? So kind of to do that self-reflective work. I know Steve talked about Myers-Briggs. Kris talked about the DISC. There's Strengths Finder. I would encourage to take some of those self-assessment tests and then to really talk to your clients. What does my tribe want to hear? So just as we asked you, what is it that you're struggling with, so that we know our audience, what is it that they want to hear, right? I would want to hear, hey, it's easy to buy a house. I'm here to help you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be your advocate. And then what could they get wrong in your messaging? So this is sort of a helpful thing that I know we've used. I've always used this in every job. I've kind of taken it with me, that kind of keeps, again, that message clear. And again, we'll share that with you as you're kind of developing your messaging. And then when you think about the types of things that you are going to talk about and share with with your tribe, how can you talk about these areas, and what are three things that you could write about right now? And so Steve, you had talked about sharing things. You get a lot of things that come in, so not everything do you have to write yourself, but you can share great things, pull in different content, maybe a hybrid of both, or you can write your own pieces, which I would encourage everyone, of course, to do. Kris, have you played around with writing your own content? I know you've used some different tools. Can you talk about kind of your take on how you talk about your areas on your social channels?
Just in regards to, I do pull in, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was saying, when you're talking about leadership, I know recently you had just won a recent award, on Facebook, which again inspires the rest of us. Like, look what she's doing, and that's kind of your language and how your brand kind of shines through. So the things that you choose to share, and maybe it's so intuitive to you that you might not be aware of it. For all of us who are kind of watching, following, you and who you are, we notice that those are the types of things that you are sharing with your people.
Yeah, so yeah, as far as the award, I think it's important that, it's not coming from a bragging standpoint. I think my clients and people do want to know, are you really selling homes? Is this full-time gig, or is this just a hobby kind of thing, right? No, and I want them to know that, yes, this is a full-time gig. This is what I do to feed my family, and I am taking it seriously. And with that said, I will share if I get an award or what have you. I want them to know that, and also pull it back to them that I didn't get this award on my own accord. I got this award because they trusted me, they liked me enough to do business with me, so to speak, right? So so a lot of those, but a lot of, I think what this question speaks to is, again, going back to our marketing strategies. And my best, when I do my best work is when I'm in front of my people, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm having those face-to-face conversations, when I'm actually talking to people face-to-face. I'm not a successful realtor because I'm sitting behind a computer writing things and that kind of thing. And so when I think of that for me and my personality, I think the value of my marketing strategy. A lot of the value of my marketing strategies hits exactly what this question asks. What are the 3 articles you could write about now? It takes kind of that pressure off of me, and it still makes me look like the expert, but I'm using systems to support taking that pressure off of me, and I'm using the system to make that happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can talk about, you know, some of those systems, and when we talk about content, right? This is a question that we always get, like, what are you talking about? So when we, again, start to go further on in this webinar and really start putting all this together, when we refer to content, we're talking about what do you have, what inventory do you have to sell, photos and videos, stories, articles, tips. They could be personal, they could be things that you love to connect people to, and sharing of others' articles. So when we talk about the word content, that's really what, you know, we're referring to. And Steve, I know your association does this, you know, with your members all the time, is sharing different things that are coming across, you know, your desk right now. And in our practice, this was the topic that we really spent the most time on, I think the 3 of us, is this life schedule. And so I do want to spend a little time on this and show you some tools that we're also going to give you. But Steve, you really you kind of lit up when you were talking about this and hearing about the scheduling of this. Can you maybe we can kind of replay that conversation among the 3 of us, that this really seemed to hit home on what is your schedule and how are you going to spend time doing this? Can you speak to that a little bit?
How you going to spend time on social media and communicating and all that kind of thing? Yeah. I mean, gosh, you know, everybody, you know, Kris just talked about her kids, and I'm at a stage where my kids aren't around anymore, but most of the folks that I come into contact with, a whole lot of them have families that they have to spend time with, and you're saying, gosh, I've just worked, you know, at least 10 hours today already. I'm going to spend a little bit of time at home, and then I've got to maybe sit down when they go to bed, and I got to put something out, you know, on social media if that's the only chance I have. So, you know, we actually talked about, you know, you kind of got to program this into your schedule. My wife operates a home-based business, and she's doing that during the day, but she knows that most of the people she needs to connect with have to do it after hours. So, you know, we might see each other at dinner time, and then, you know, she's down in her office and she's on the computer, and, you know, I go to bed. So, because I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and run. But the fact is, you have to decide, you know, this is important enough that I put this into my work week, and I set aside, you know, this hour or this 2 hours or however much you can spare just for the sake of pushing this out. I try to at least look at social media in the morning, you know, like you read a morning paper a little bit, and I'm not as good as I want to be, but I know that, you know, if I can push something out, at least retweet something, share something I've read, whether it's original or not, you know, to be active doing it, at least, you know, almost daily, I think is important to at least keep yourself out there. But I do feel like you're right when it comes to sitting down and, you know, you're trying to get personal with your audience, and you have to put some thought into, let me put some thoughts together and on paper here and then out to the world that sort of lets people know that I'm a real person and I really care about them. I want to care about, you know, them if I'm trying to represent them, to help them buy a home, find a home, whatever. You know, who am I to them, so that they feel comfortable using me as their realtor, as their representative.
Yep. And you two both do a good job, I think, with social media. It's always, social media, remember, is about what you give, not necessarily what you're always putting out there. So I see you commenting and liking and sharing others. And so I think when you do think about that calendar, again, don't forget about what's trending. I know in our business we have an editorial calendar, and when it's back to school, we talked about kind of the the lesson plan that will, or one of our blog posts was the #1 lesson we learned, from our 941 customers. So we'll share this with you. Also, kind of an editorial calendar template where you can just kind of map out when am I going to talk about certain things, and to really ride the wave of what's trending. In January, people are thinking about getting organized, so really organizing your home and tips and to really ride this wave of what is trending out there, and to kind of map that out and tap into that is another helpful way to kind of get your message out there as well. So the thing is, where do I do all this stuff? And today, if we had to pick kind of from the experts that we've talked to, 3 that were our favorite. I know people are using Facebook, and I think that's more on a personal level, but to really think about, content is always king. So if you aren't blogging, or if you can share things on a blog, email still is the #1 way to reach that audience. And of course, LinkedIn. I know at the conference, Steve, we talked a lot about LinkedIn. We had a LinkedIn expert to really make sure your profile is rooted in all of that why. But if somebody had to ask, hey, where should I be? I would pick what, again, you're most comfortable with and where your audience is, right? Maybe if you're selling to a younger audience, you might want to consider another platform. But if you can kind of hone it down and not do all of it, and just start, if you're just starting, okay, I'm going to just do these 3, I think you'll be a lot more successful going down the way. This is a tip that I want to share. This is a free service, Canva. If you haven't used it, when you are and kind of get who am I and what my brand is, Canva is a great site that will design and has really professional looking templates for your Facebook header image, your Twitter header image. If you're doing certain posts, it's really a nice tool to have. Again, that life schedule, we're going to give that to you, where you can really map out what is my life schedule now, and where can I fit an hour or 2 kind of in my week to really focus on my branding and my marketing and what is it that I want to say. We're going to give you the message map and the editorial calendar as well, and you'll have all of that. They're all really good templates that I know I've used in all the jobs that I've had that have really helped just keep us on track. Again, rooted in our authentic why, but yet how do I execute it, and how do I have things that will actually help me get this out the door. So Steve, Kris, do you want to add anything to those tips or tools? I know we want to give our freebie away to all the members here that are attending today, of how we've kind of automated some of this, and how to kind of again talk about Cerkl real quick to wrap up, and then we want to get to questions. We want to give away our innovative technology of how we've kind of taken all of that stuff and automated it, but of course you don't have to use it. It's just to be aware that there are a lot of tools out there that you can use that, Kris, I know you talked about really 2017 and 18 was about you wanting to incorporate systems into your marketing. So any last minute thoughts before we move on and give our free thing away, and then take questions from the audience?
Yeah. Well, I'll jump in and say, again, going back to the authenticity of trying to brand ourselves, first and foremost, what I know about me is that I'm not a highly techie kind of person. So I get immediately, I seriously get overwhelmed when I think about all this, and I think, oh my gosh, all these different social media outlets and avenues that I can take. I almost shut down, because I just get overwhelmed, because I'm not naturally wired to just get all that, right? But what I have found, again, and Sarah, you said that right at the very beginning of 2017, I said it's going to be a year of systems for me, because I'm going to revamp. And I think the one word that I hear and then I thought about last year, 2017, and implementing things, was how can I be on more purpose? How can I be more purposeful with what I do? Because there's so many things that we can do, and yet, oh yeah, we need to go out there and you know, meet people and have client face-to-face meetings and those kinds of things, right? So, and on top of it, we've got families and spouses and all, so we're talking about our life schedule. So when I look at my life schedule and I'm mapping it out, I want to know where and how can I be purposeful, right, with achieving what my personal goals are. So I have to be very careful about that and then strategize those ways to incorporate systems that are going to help me be more on purpose to achieving what I personally want to get out and how I want to design my life, right? So I think that's an important thing, and especially as the freedom of being entrepreneurials, we really do have the freedom of designing our life in all aspects. And so I think that's just a huge gift that we have, but we have to be mindful and on purpose of how we design that. So to get into the systems, I know we're going to talk a little, can I just reference one system versus the other that, can I gun on anything here, or can I just kind of want to talk about the value of statistically what I found from one system versus what I've found with Cerkl and the value of that. Are we jumping the gun there?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so so the very beginning of the year, I paid for, and I'm not gonna say what and so forth, but I know as realtors we know that there are so many things out there that are available, but yet we have to pay for them, and sometimes they're costly, right? So I did incorporate one piece that's going to help me with all this automation of social media. And yet the cool thing about it is that I get the analytics of how many of my clients actually open it and how many of my clients actually click through the articles given and those kinds of things. So that's just huge information to me. I can tell you on the piece that I'm paying a lot of money for, I've only got a 10% engagement on that with a 3% click-through rate. That's not very many, right? But when I look at the value behind Cerkl, I've got a 94.3% engagement rate, which is huge, and I have a 21% click-through rate, which is absolutely phenomenal. So it's more purposeful, right, through the systems, and I think what Cerkl offers is because it's more individualized. My clients are able to get what they want to read. It's not just another piece of email that goes to spam, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think the principle on that, again, is what we've learned is even if you don't use Cerkl, the lesson is ask your audience what do they care about, right? Or even if you survey them at the very least. Right. I know our system, automatically kind of learns about the interest of your audience, but we kind of automate that for you. If you don't go through an automated version, the learning and the lesson is find out from your clients what is it that they care about, what do they like. You could do that via a survey, or our system does this, automatically where, Kris, these are the topics you've chosen to talk about in there. Is that community engagement, decorating, DIY? Those are the things that I personally like, but someone else could pick something else, and they can exclude, topics as well. So we've automated this, and just so the audience knows, we sell typically into big enterprise. This is something that we've developed for kind of one-man band realtors. This product that we're giving away free, to you today to use. But the system will import your list and kind of automate the learning. What schedule works best for them? When do they want to hear from you? And how do they want? What kind of format do they want it in? Because the different generations are used to kind of seeing that. So we automate that email newsletter, and so this is actually my newsletter that I get from you. So you can see in my top story are soups under 350 calories, and that's how I see you, because you're always talking about fitness, and I know we're just reading in several different blogs. So if you want more and want to learn more about this, we've got a whole team. You can access our website and ask, but Cerkl just kind of pulls all of this stuff together. Kris isn't writing any of this, and and delivering kind of the stories and the news and really stewarding that one-to-one communication that Steve talked about. And we want to give that away to, everybody for free to use today. You can do, of course, interest-based journeys, so that if you did have maybe a house in Fort Thomas, you can tag everybody that was interested in that city. Or Kris, I know you had talked about doing different events. Like we should do a community service event around, topics that we cared about. You can kind of do, one-off things. And I know these were your metrics, that you're seeing. And you can see the popular topics kind of trending among your audience with, interestingly enough, your tribe is interested in community engagement, DIY, and leadership. So, but on the right-hand side, they also want to hear about investment properties and need to talk more about that. So if you're more interested in talking about automated things, again, you can use us. And this is really our offer, but really we're modeling the way of, I would encourage you to do this with your clients, right? So if you're giving value and giving things away, to give them something, ask them, hey, tweet about me or the service if you like that, and get a free whatever. So this is kind of our promo offering today. We know a lot of people have less than 1,000 contacts, and even if you have more, I think our service is really affordable, maybe $10 a month for thousands of people on your list. It's really not our key business, but we wanted to make sure. I know Steve, the association uses Cerkl, and you've and I have talked about really wanting today to provide, again, another value add on to being a member and also being part of the webinar. So we want to offer that today, but I also want to leave time for questions from the audience. And as I pull up the question box, Steve or Kris, did you have anything based on the principles of really asking your clients and really personalize the information going out, which is, you had talked about that handwritten note, that personal. So to kind of keep that lesson top of mind, whether you use an automated system, like Cerkl or not. So any thoughts before we head into questions from either of you?
I'm interested in seeing the questions, but I just would say the same thing. Our engagement increased dramatically as a result of this. From the standard newsletter that we used to send out electronically every 2 weeks, that was a one-size-fits-all, about a 30% open, to now one that's about 50% every single time it goes out. It's all been, personalized, customized by the individual who's receiving it. We obviously have the opportunity to put in information all the time from our own organization that is very pertinent, up to date. You need to know this kind of stuff, but they've selected the rest of it. And whenever we post photos, things like that, engagement always goes up too. I would just mention that while I'm at it. We've seen that the more we put photos of people, whether if you're a realtor and you're trying to say, hey, here's some of our happy our buyers or sellers, perhaps that might help you. But people love to look out there and see if they know anybody. So in those photos, and so we see an uptick every time we end up populating a publication with photos, just for whatever that's worth.
We're going to go over kind of 1 to 2 minutes longer just to answer the questions. I know we're right at the time. But one question coming in is, how do I find good content for my audience? Other than real estate, I'm not too sure what I'm looking for. So, Kris, when I know we were determining, hey, what are we pulling in? We're pulling in like Under Armour blog, and again, it was all that stuff rooted in who you were. But maybe both of you can kind of speak to this question of what things other than real estate am I sharing with my audience? What are we talking about?
Go ahead, Kris. Do you have some?
For one, it's just. Again, what I like about, and I know this is just total and added value. I'm not completely pitching Cerkl, but Cerkl just takes that guessing game out of it for me. Because again, it allows the individual person to grab content that is going to be interesting to them. So I don't have to think about those kind of things. But in terms of engagement and keeping my tribe engaged, I mean, I'm going to, anything from community fundraising, community engagement, happy hours, events, you know, running races, you know, anything that I can share that's going to help keep my interaction with my clients, not just on purpose, but real, authentic. I'm as human as you are, and this is what we're doing. We're in it together, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of topics that I look for.
Steve, what about you guys from the association? How do you find out what your members find valuable? How do you find that content?
Well, because of the way this organization is geared, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, we are in a mode of always looking out for the realtor and the real estate industry. Anytime changes are occurring on the federal level, the state level, when it comes to regulations or new laws or something that will affect how they can do business, or, you know, new costs associated with that. I mean, we want to make sure we pull that information in and share that as much as possible to create whatever awareness that maybe a business practice might need to change because there's been a change at the state or the federal or whatever level. If you're a local real estate person, you know, and your local association provides that to you, that's an invaluable piece of information you might have missed because you weren't able to pay attention to what the city council just did to you or whatever. So we're looking for that kind of information all the time. But I do think people are curious about what's going on in other parts of the country. They like to see what the trends are that are going on relative to the sales. You know, I think I saw on yours, Kris, you had something about Ellen DeGeneres' home. There are, you know, there's a whole set of information that comes in on celebrity homes and housing, and, you know, just it's fun to read about and see what people pay for that. So sometimes people are just curious about that and they want to see that information. So we have a variety of sources that people can select if they want that type of topic or any particular topic, with about 20 different tags that they can put out there and they can bring in.
Kris, do you mind if we share maybe in our follow-up email some examples of blogs that you're pulling in? I know we've got a whole list of content sources that read in, but that might be helpful, you know, for the audience to see what is she actually pulling in and how that's tied to that hard work you've done on this is what my brand is, right? These are the people that I want to attract. Do you mind if we share that with the audience via email?
Yep, that's great.
Okay. All right. The other question, and we'll end with this one that has come in, and this is a good one. How can I combine the email marketing effort with my direct mail approach? So I know there's several that still use direct mail. Kris, do you still do direct mail?
Periodically. I'm not monthly with it, but periodically I'll put something out.
I would say that to have data from the email or your Facebook or whatever social media stats that you do have that can inform what that direct mail should be. So, you know, Kris, with you knowing that, hey, those top three were community engagement, leadership, and DIY, now we know this is what we should even put in direct mail if we're going to do a direct mail piece. So I think to make sure that whatever you put in that direct mail, it is data driven, whether you use an automated system like Cerkl to give you that authentic data, or whether you do survey your audience and ask them, I think would make the direct mail, you know, valuable, just to make sure you've got data behind that so that you aren't guessing and wasting what's, you know, direct mail can be expensive. But in your direct mail, I know you had mentioned that those handwritten notes, which they're personal. So that's what I like about your handwritten notes. So anything else you guys want to say to wrap up today? Again, we'll send everything via email, and I can't thank Kris and Steve enough for really being driven to, again, just provide that value for everyone here, you know, listening today. Any last comments or encouragement for our fellow realtors?
Well, I just thank everybody for tuning in as well and being engaged with us. And, you know, again, I would go back to the fact that technology is changing so rapidly. Keep your eyes open. Back to your just a quick point on direct mail. You know, today there are companies, and we have partnered with one. I'm not trying to make a sales pitch here, but the fact is our realtors can access it through us. But basically, they use smart analytics to determine who the best target for your email is within a certain zip code. And they use, 14, 15 or more different pieces of data to create an algorithm to say, of the 10,000 people in this zip code, these 2,000 are the most likely to sell a home or buy a home. So don't waste your money sending to all those other folks in this zip code. Send to these folks, and you will maximize your return on investment. Because, the old days, and folks still use that, I'm sure, is you just blast a postcard to everybody, and you're going to hopefully hit a couple that might be interested, but you know what? You're going to waste a lot as you do it. So how can we narrow that down? And again, technology is providing us new ways to really get narrower and determine, a better use of our dollar, targeted better towards the people that most likely could be our customer.
And Steve, if they have other questions, with tips like that, what is the best way for your members to kind of get in touch and ask those questions? I know you're so sensitive of doing the sales pitches for things, but people that you've worked with, or maybe there are partners that you've negotiated, maybe special pricing, or if they did want to reach the association, what's the best way for them to tap into your knowledge of that?
You can either email or call directly to our office, and we'll definitely connect with you on that very quickly.
Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough. I know we're a little bit over time, but I do want to honor everyone's time. And if anyone has any questions, Kris, I'm sure that you'd be open to having them email you directly to kind of dive in deeper to things that you've done that have worked. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free. I think you've got my email right there on that slide.
All right, great. And again, feel free to reach out to us. Again, at Cerkl, you can either email me directly. We have a chat bot on our website. Tell them, hey, we attended the Realtor webinar, so that we know you're one of our partners and kind of one of our families, so that we want to make sure we give you that special attention to really help you kind of crack this code of your marketing strategy. But I think today was really about breaking it down and to really cut through that noise, to go through some of those first foundational steps. I think it'll ring truer and become a lot more personalized, for your audience. So thanks so much for attending today. We will send everything to you in an email, all of the templates, tools, the offer, all of it. Can't thank you enough, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks again, Kris and Steve.
Welcome.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.